Okay, now we're going to look at a sample of ESL student writing, again from the first week or so of the quarter. So this should give you an idea of where you might place yourself if your writing looks somewhat like the ESL student sample. So I'm going to go ahead and read through it and follow along with me as I read. As an immigration person, I would like to share my experiences about English learning. I moved to the United States and became a disabled person because I couldn't understand what the people around me were talking about. I couldn't express my opinion. How can I live without communicating with American society was a question that I asked myself. Therefore, I decided to attend English program at South Seattle College and learn English skills. I focused on reading, writing, and grammar. Okay, so first we're going to look at what the ESL student is still working on, the skills that are in process for them. And so I pointed out a couple of those here. And the things that stood out to me most with the sample are consistent word choices and sentence structure errors. And so in that first sentence, the student chose to say immigration person. They said, as an immigration person, I would like to share my experiences. Now, a more appropriate or sort of more accurate term might be something like immigrant instead of immigration person. Then if we look to the second sentence, I moved to the United States and became a disabled person. So again, disabled person probably isn't quite what they mean to say here, but this is something that the student will practice in the ESL classes and sort of expanding their vocabulary to address some of these language issues that you really have to just be in the room working on to learn how to do more consistently. So I suggested that instead of disabled person, the student might have said, when I moved to the United States, I faced many challenges because I couldn't understand what the people around me were talking about. And then at the very end here, we see the student says, therefore I decided to attended instead of attend. And this is a verb tense error. This happens throughout. And the student has like kind of a working understanding of how verbs work, but this is something they'd want to probably practice in an ESL classroom. Okay, so now to the strengths. The writer is clearly expressing their ideas. This actually gets a good amount of purpose across. We know why the writer is talking about their communication challenges here. And I especially think this sentence makes it clear. How can I live without communicating with American society was a question that I asked myself. That's a pretty advanced way of thinking about their relationship to speaking in English and understanding how English works. And so the writer is really getting the ideas across, even though they're maybe not in the most sort of standard English form, right? So that's a good strength, and this is something that like a lot of the ESL students are probably thinking about is, I feel like I can express my ideas, but I want to be able to do them in a way that's more sort of standard English and college-ready English. Okay, so here's another strength. The author shows a variety of sentence types, and there's a confidence and experimentation with how they're using verbs already. So this is probably from a high-level ESL student, so someone who would enter into the ESL classes at a level 5 or maybe a level 6 class, which you'll learn more about when you talk with an advisor if you choose this pathway. So we can see the student said, I would like to share. I moved to the United States. I couldn't understand, right? These are all different sort of verb use, and there's a confidence and experimentation with that. Even though they don't hit every verb correctly, they feel comfortable using multiple different forms. All right, so why ESL makes sense for this type of a student? You might enter into an ESL classroom if you're entering the US education system for the first time. Many of our ESL classes are particularly geared toward those students. An ESL class might make sense if you want to learn more about US culture and everyday life in Seattle. This is a big part of the curriculum. An ESL class might make sense if you want focused attention on increasing your fluency in English with speaking, reading, and writing. So a lot of our other classes don't focus as much on spoken English, and this will give you a chance to do that, especially at the lower levels. And then the final reason you might want to choose an ESL class if you feel like this is a good match is students are placed into an ESL class that challenges them and is an appropriate fit for the level of English skills they have coming into South. Okay, so we have level 1 through college prep. So you could just be learning to speak, read, and write in English, or you could be basically ready for college, but you want another quarter of focused attention on English fluency, speaking, reading, and writing.